All right, in this episode, we talk about drills for arm cocking.
And should you do the towel drill?
All right, Brent Porcio, Jordan West. You can go down here at the @TopVelocity #PitchTip show. If you haven't heard about us already, you go to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat @TopVelocity, #PitchingTips, #BaseballTips, #catcher tips. Ask your question, we answer it on the show. We've had a lot of good questions so far, so let's just get started. What's the question for today? Danny Muniz asks, my problem is I engage my arm too early in the delivery. What are some tips and drills to fix this? All right, good question. So this is talking about arm cocking, timing of arm cocking. How would you fix someone who's an early arm cocker? Well, I like our 2-pound med ball drills because you have a heavier weight at 2 pounds and you would actually start it in a delayed or low or more internally rotated position before you start your throw. I like to get the elbow abducted because it's a heavier ball because you have to be really there's more intent to cock the ball. And it's just timing as you drive and hit front foot. The moment you're hitting front foot, you're trying to go into that arm cocking. But there is challenges. If you are someone who wants to cock the ball early, it's probably because you have either poor leg power, so your arm's trying to overcompensate, you have poor trunk rotation, or poor hip rotation. So it's really hard for you to separate. So your arm's just trying to get up so it doesn't get caught dragging through. Because really separating the lower half from the upper half, if there's good power to do that, gives you time to properly load the arm. And we want that. And the later we are, the more time the more time we'll have to do that and the more forces will hit the arm. But also at the same time too, we don't want to be late arm cockers and early trunk rotators. It's just going to get caught in between. So late arm cockers gives potential to put more loads in the arm, but we have to be really good hip shoulder separation to give it time to actually do that. And a good drill would be the 2-pound drill. I don't know, Jordan. Jordan's new to the 3X pitching velocity program, just came down to a camp. I just wanted to throw him out here and see how he
out into the fire.
Sticks in the camp. Did you experience any time where you were working on the timing of your arm cocking?
Yeah, actually a lot. That's my biggest problem is I don't have enough hip to shoulder separation because my hip extender and all of my hip mobility is just terrible. So I'm not translating that energy enough from the 3X drive.
So what happens is you're trying to force everything to stay back, but then there's no power to move you forward. So then to try to get power to move you forward, you typically transfer your energy too early, so you're having a hard time finding the balance between the back leg drive once your mobility allows it and the timing of hip to shoulder separation to arm cocking. But do you feel like once you get that down, is your arm cock timing good? Are you trying to, do you feel like you're trying to start too early with your upper body?
I mean, after we did the drills, I thought I could see a huge improvement already. I mean, I did some throws earlier. I didn't have the radar on, unfortunately, but I mean, it felt a lot better for sure.
I think too, like with you, the one challenge you were having too is staying on the contralateral side. Okay, so when you're not on the contralateral side, this is going to help guys to, be able to time the arm cocking or the arm path better. Is if you're on the ipsilateral side, which is through the throwing arm side, your arm's going to want to, you're going to want to be more sidearm, and it's going to be harder to separate. Your arm's going to want to go early. So the point is, and he knows this too, is the more you can keep your trunk to the glove side, the easier it's going to be to time later arm cocking and actually separate more. It all supports this same thing. But any specific drills? I mean, do you feel like those 2-pound med drills helped timing that arm cocking later? Do you feel like that helped or not?
Yeah, I mean, I have never done any drills that are hip to shoulder separation other than the wall drill where you just put your hands up and then just push your hips through. But that doesn't really involve 3X that much because you're not actually having to drive and counter rotate.
But that's a good drill. I mean, I think that does give you a feeling of how to hold your shoulders and move your hips through. I like that drill. That's a pretty good drill. We didn't even do that drill. So tell me a little more about it. You just like go up to a wall and
yeah, what you do is you just go up to a wall, you get about, I don't know, I'd say 3 inches from it and put your chest right up next to it, and you look like you're looking down a mountain, and then you drive with your hips, but you keep your chest and your hands still on the wall, so you are keeping that trunk back and rotating those hips through.
And I would even suggest, if you can do that, be a little bit more extended from the wall, so you actually have some flexion in your trunk. So you feel that contralateral tilt. I used to do it too, where we took a broomstick and you'd hold a broomstick here and you'd actually work the hips coming through, driving the hips through and trying to hold that shoulder closed. Because these are all hip to shoulder separation drills, and what this will allow is you to more easily time the arm path and time it later. Because the reason it wants to go early, more than likely, because you don't separate well or you don't have a lot of leg power, which is all a part of hip to shoulder separation. So that's really the point here, is if you can get better at hip to shoulder separation, it should get easier to time the arm path better as well. Cool, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, like just really getting good linear power down the mound, and then having the mobility to get in the range of motion is huge also for the ability to cock the arm. And also like with the med balls and just with the baseballs on arm cocking and really accepting the load, like if your body doesn't have the strength to withstand the torques that you're putting on it from the lower half, and be able to withstand the torques that you're going to put on it, then your arm's not going to want to do it. And then same, if your mobility is just not there, it's going to hit that range of motion and just want to go. So there's other factors that can come into it. Like we see a lot of guys come into camp with really bad trunk rotation. So they're going to reach their trunk rotation and it's just going to want to go. And then that comes down to, well, maybe they're going to need a lot more power from their lower half to power everything through, try to get a little bit more range of motion in there, and maybe that's as much as they're going to be able to influence it. So
yeah, it does take a lot of core strength too to be able to torque the trunk and even flex the trunk, with a lot of speed moving through your body. So you'll also find too, and like we do with 3x Pitch Velocity program, we have a lift or an exercise that really is going to support all the biomechanics. So when we're talking about drills to help train the body how to move certain ways, we also have lifts and exercises that are going to build integrity and strength and power to support those movements and well. So you really always have to go at it in 2 different ways. Sometimes you'll get out there and you're trying to separate more, but you don't have the core strength to twist your trunk that way when you start moving force and power through your body. So that's where you can sit there and beat your head against the wall all day with the drill, and you actually really need the core strength development more importantly than the drill right now.
Yeah. Another thing, like Brent talks about, how it's kind of like a rubber band. Like you have to have an equal amount of force pulling this way as you do pulling back. So if you don't have enough force to be pulling back with the lower half, or vice versa, you have more pulling back here than the lower half, then you're not going to get that good
yeah, that's a great point. Hip to shoulder separation is no different than a rubber band. And this is what Steve was talking about. If the force I'm pulling back on the rubber band, or the force, or this, what I'm holding on this end of the rubber band, that has to equal the force I'm pulling back. So it's like a perfect equal and opposite of force production. So that has to happen too. The force of your back leg drive driving your hips down the mound, the counter rotation has to equal, the force of counter rotation has to equal that force to kind of be able to have the effect of building the elasticity and then releasing the upper body, kind of like the rubber band. All right, good question. Next question. Brian Havarilla asks, can going through the delivery with the towel drill be beneficial if it is used to practice 3x mechanics? Yes, I would only recommend a towel drill if you're using it through the biomechanics that we have laid out in 3x mechanics or 3x pitch velocity program. So if you're actually using it, it's just another weight in the arm to practice, say, dry, you're not throwing the 3x mechanics, then it's perfect. If you're filming, and I would suggest with the towel is you film yourself. And if you film yourself and you see you aren't, then the towel drill is not helping you. So the guys that I see that use towel drills and they do what most guys want to do with the towel drill, they think it's to reach out, and then they won't separate, they'll just break their hands and then quickly reach out. That's horrible, because you're training mechanics that you don't want to use on the mound. And the purpose of doing a dry drill is to basically just mimic the good set of mechanics you want to reinforce through reps. Have you ever used a towel drill?
Yeah, I actually used towel drill all throughout high school.
Okay, so what do you feel like? Is the way you're using it the way I'm suggesting, or do you feel like that now that you're going to use it, you think you're going to use it this way? Or talk a little bit how you used to use it and how you see it as a good purpose for velocity.
Well, my pitching coach in high school, we did a lot of variations of the towel drill. Most of them being like kind of like a arm, like we would be on a mound, obviously arm lift with a swing and then come through and go down the mound. And then we'd have ones where we'd be at the bottom of the mound with someone there holding their glove out, and you had to go into a full finish and whip through and reach out and touch his glove. And then we had some curl hop ones as well. But I mean, I think towel drill can really help with drive if that's what you're focusing on. But if not, it can be a very damaging thing to your mechanics as well.
Yeah, you never want to enforce mechanics that you don't want, because your body's retaining this information, and it'll eventually, over patterns over time, will put it in as muscle memory. So, like for example, I think you make a good point. You know, the one where you are on your front leg and you're balancing and then you're reaching out. Well, if your front leg force vector is straight up and down, you know, that's not a position you want to get in when you release the ball. So it might not be obviously the best drill. If you could somehow put your force vector more linear and do the towel drill, then it gets better. So that's my point. Do all these drills, these variations, but if they don't mimic the mechanics of high velocity pitcher like we have mapped out in the 3X mechanics guides, then to me, they're not good drills. Because that's that old saying of, you know, repetition is practice makes perfect, right, through repetition. But more importantly, it really is perfect practice makes perfect. So if I'm doing a bunch of reps of bad mechanics, that's not good training. That's not going to help me develop good motor control or good mechanics. So I would not want to do that. But if I can make those reps perfect, then that's great. So the point is that towel drill is only going to help if you can replicate the perfect mechanics that we've mapped out of the high velocity pitcher.
If I was you, I would just get a 2-pound med ball and film my mechanics doing that. I think you just have you can spend your time in a more productive way.
Yeah, and you know, it doesn't need to be a towel. I think I like to use, I've made this one with a little bat handle with a rope and a ball. And the reason I liked it is because they had a weight, or you could, you know, make it simpler, sock and a ball. Because the weight on the end, more than just a towel, makes you internally rotate earlier, which is going to force you into a better arm path at the end, which typically with a light object, you want to delay internal rotation. So it kind of allows you to use a light object or a dry throw and actually get into good internal rotation like you're actually throwing. So I do like, if you're going to do a dry instrument, get something that has the weight on the end to force you to internally rotate, which typically would happen with throwing an object. So, but besides that, you know, I would rather see you throw a 2-pound med ball, because that's why we throw it. It doesn't put the wear and tear on the arm that a baseball does, so we can throw it a lot and not be worn out from all that throwing. Good suggestion. All right, cool. If you have a question, go to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at TopVelocity, hashtag pitching tips, hashtag baseball tips. Ask your question when it's on the show. We're going to check out TopVelocity.net. 3X, 2X programs are also going to be the ABCA convention. Come out and check us out in Nashville, and we'll see you on the next episode.
We them boys.